Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are Miguel Delaney, Chief Football Writer at The Independent, and Charlie Wyatt, a Football Editor at The Sun. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages. Charlie's paper, we can win big. Amorim United need glory in Bilbao. Also got Van der Ven, who's vowed to stop rivals from taking the mickey. The Mirror, again, focuses on the big match on Wednesday, IO Euro. Mason Mount there, and Crackerjack stuns the Reds. Brighton's winner, Hinchelwood against Liverpool. Liverpool vying for Wirtz is the headline of the Times, Florian Wirtz. The Telegraph covers news of Gary Lineker's departure from the BBC. Lineker to lose out on £800,000 in BBC exit, while super sub Hinchelwood stuns Liverpool. And The Guardian, again, focuses on the Monday Night Football. Hinchelwood fires Brighton bid for Europe, while police warn ticketless fans to stay away from the Bilbao final. OK, Charlie, let's come to you then, the back page of your paper. Wonderful picture of Ange Postecoglou in a blue tracksuit. Below that, let's focus on Manchester United for the first part of it. We couldn't win big. Cunha as in Matheus Cunha. Amorim United need glory in Bilbao. Devils will trigger £62.5 million MAC clause. And Beckham urges board to back boss. What's the big news, do you think, Charlie? Is it Cunha come what may? Is that the big thing today?
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, as you've just pointed out, really, it's three stories rolled into one. And yeah, Cunha, 62.5 million release clause. He sorted out a new contract a few months ago, didn't he? And I think that would be a great signing for Manchester United. But of course, before that, there's this huge game. And Amorim saying that, reaching the final just isn't good enough. They need to do more. They need to win it. And I think every single Manchester United fan would agree with him. If Manchester United lose to Spurs, then it's basically a disastrous season. And of course, if they win, it's been a pretty good one, despite their embarrassing position in the league table. And I think it's pretty much a similar story for Spurs, isn't it? It really is, win or bust. And yeah, there's also in the back page, there's David Beckham basically telling the board to stick with Amorim. I'm sure they will. But he's given the United manager his backing, knowing full well that over the years at United, they benefited from stability under Sir Alex Ferguson. But yeah, Cunha would be an interesting signing, but I think all eyes certainly are on Bilbao at the moment.
As we understand it, Miguel, I believe Cunha's keen, regardless of whether they win the Europa League and go into the Champions League. How big a boost is it for Manchester United's flailing ego at the moment, of the club, of the fans, of the whole entity?
Yeah, I mean, it still shows the attraction of the club. And I suppose this is the one thing about clubs the size of Manchester United, that no matter how they're doing, no matter where they are at certain points in the history, there's always that status, as well as that idea that if a player goes there, he can re-energise the club. I think it is striking, actually, that everyone at United seems so confident about this deal, given that, obviously, so much of this final, and actually I do find this slightly poignant with the Europa League, given the history of the competition, given how big the trophy itself used to be before the European Cup became the Champions League, that so much of the focus is actually on what it means for Manchester United in the future, rather than necessarily the glory this season. I know that's not quite the same as for Tottenham Hotspur, but obviously that has real effect, given, as we've discussed in the show before, Manchester United basically have parallel transfer plans. One is for if they don't win the Europa League, and one is if they do. And as we understand it, Cunha and a striker fit on both of those plans. It's obviously if they win the competition, they can do much more. But I suppose this is also promising for the club in the sense that a lot of other big clubs do like the look of Cunha. Arsenal have been one. They considered a move in January. They still like him now. But everything we hear, of course, is that, yeah, it's virtually certain that it ends up United having him.
Charlie, how significant for Amorim is the backing of David Beckham, do you feel?
I think it's nice to have, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, it's not going to help his job, but I think he'd enjoy backing from Beckham. I'm not sure how well they know each other, whether they've ever actually met. But yeah, look, for David Beckham, he obviously wants Manchester United to win trophies. He's got other priorities, of course, in the United States, but of course, even when Amorim was appointed, I think he spoke about saying that he felt it was the right appointment. And I think pretty much everyone else did at the time as well. It's been very, very difficult for Amorim. We obviously love his honesty, don't we? Over the last couple of weeks in particular, at times I've been surprised by some of his honesty. And once again, the story on our back page, again, just stressing the fact that, he feels that getting to the final, not winning, is not an achievement. I think that's the right thing to say. He's obviously going to put a lot of pressure on the team. United, I think they'll expect to win, to beat Spurs. But obviously it's a 50-50 game. And it's an absolutely fascinating match. While it's a shame we're not going to have any English teams in Munich, I've yet to speak to any football fan who supports any team that's not going to be watching that game in Bilbao. It's going to be a brilliant occasion.
Compelling, isn't it? Yeah, a bit of a knife edge for both teams' seasons. On that front, there's been a bit of a subplot, Miguel, in travel plans. As we see that picture on the back page of the Sun of Ange arriving 24 hours before Manchester United will in Spain to scout out the sunbeds, etc. But Van der Ven vows to stop rivals from taking the mickey. He says everybody knows that when you join Tottenham, you get, you're not going to win a trophy. People saying you will be trophyless for the rest of your career. How surprised are you that all the Spursy tags, etc., have got through to the overseas players?
I mean, I suppose there's such noise about it that it's natural. I have to say, even when I've been writing about this game, some of your kind of like commentary is almost conditioned basically by this, I suppose, simple idea that we're very used to Manchester United winning trophies and we're not used to Spurs winning trophies. And there's obviously the question of how much almost this kind of historic culture actually influences a game like this. And I think that's all the more interesting given that, this season, Postecoglou's side have beaten United three times out of three. But now as it gets to the big game that really, really matters, you do wonder whether these old cultural tags actually matter. It obviously, as we can see from what Van der Ven is saying, it's made its way down to the dressing room. And I must say, I find, just touching on Amorim again for a second, I find his comments in that context quite interesting. I don't want to say Amorim has been too honest. I obviously want people to speak their mind. But I do wonder at this point whether he's saying a lot of this because it's almost as if it offers cover for himself. It's as if he offers the criticism, no one else will be as strident about how bad Manchester United have been. And hence to touch on what Charlie is saying there, despite this culture, despite the way this season has gone, despite the histories of the two clubs, it does genuinely feel a 50-50 game, and it could well be a really, really open game as well, where it almost becomes a free-for-all. I mean, that's been the lesson of their matches this season, despite Spurs winning 3.
Let's hope it's a good game. It's interesting the point that Miguel makes there, actually, doesn't he, about the pressure on Tottenham Hotspur, Charlie. We should point out that for Ruben Amorim, I suppose, Manchester United have won trophies recently. Under Eric Ten Hag, reached 3 domestic finals out of a possible 4. But what significance is the Spurs' history on this fixture, do you think? Is it a catalyst for extra motivation or is it a weight around their shoulders?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, it's just a huge game, isn't it? And I think that's probably, we're probably going to talk about the number of fans going down to Spain later, but I think there'll be more Tottenham fans there because it is such, a huge game because, they've not been in as many big finals as Manchester United have over the last 2 decades. So of course, there's huge pressure. Whether a win will be enough to keep the manager, well, that's another question, isn't it? I think it's just must win for Tottenham in so many respects. Just to somehow get that trophy and maybe this season it has been season of the underdogs. Of course, we had that brilliant story on Saturday at Wembley with Crystal Palace. We've had Newcastle, of course, win. And I don't think too many Spurs fans at the start of the season would have truly felt that they could have won the Europa League. I think some have felt that they would do quite well. But it's a great opportunity. And Manchester United, again, Spurs fans will feel that they could beat United, particularly, as Miguel said, they've got to add a decent record in those 3 matches this season.
Tottenham fans will be hoping for that, be hoping to actually make the game as well. Miguel, you've been writing about this in The Independent, how scandalous Europa League final left Tottenham and Manchester United fans scrambling. Tell us about this, Miguel. I think luckily you've got family out in Spain, but others not so lucky are out of pocket in some style.
So I'm actually in Spain now at the moment. I'm about 90 minutes away from Bilbao, Navarra, because my mother's family are from the area. So I suppose took the opportunity to come on Sunday morning when flights were much cheaper than tomorrow or Wednesday. And there was, of course, already a lot of Manchester United and Tottenham shirts at Gatwick Airport. I'm going up to Bilbao tomorrow. And you could already feel it when I flew into Bilbao itself on the day, because it's fairly close. It's the closest airport. There was already that kind of buzz building. But yeah, this has been one of the unfortunate aspects about this final. So the piece I've done today, it's about two elements of it really. One, the difficulty of all this, and just how essentially, I suppose, fans are bearing the cost of decisions taken way above their head. And secondly, how those decisions are taken, which, as many people close to UEFA or close to such decisions would say, aren't necessarily always the most transparent. And I think the thing is, I've got kind of mixed feelings about this, because look, Bilbao, it's a great city. It's a great football city. The stadium is amazing. I think if it was maybe one English club, it could just about handle it, because we are talking about a city the size of Leicester. But it's not just about the size, of course. It's about kind of the transport links, which, even though it's Spain, aren't great. So essentially, the supply can't quite meet the demand. So as a result of that, I mean, I had a look today again. The prices for Tuesday, if you want to fly one way on Tuesday from Manchester, it's just under £1,000, and that's just one flight. And like, there is this question of why do fans have to pay this much? Why is this the kind of, where are the decisions to make for our historic opportunities? Especially because UEFA and all football authorities ultimately know that, I mean, the reason we have a football business in the first place is because of fans' emotional investment in all this. And while I wouldn't go so far as saying that the game should be moved just because there's two massive English sides there are all sorts of other considerations. It is the sort of thing that other solutions could be looked at. Could clubs put on more charter flights? Do UEFA think about this in future? Because the reality is now, with the strength of the Premier League, and with the fact that, well, notionally only usually it's 4 Premier League clubs getting into the Champions League, so there will be strong Premier League clubs in the Europa League. This has to be a consideration at the start of the season. Because another massive factor in this, of course, has been that UEFA have stopped Champions League clubs dropping down into Europa League, which essentially has diminished Europa League as a competition. And really, I mean, both United and Spurs all season have been playing teams kind of, wage bills a fraction of theirs. So they're almost not destined to get here, but they had a good chance. And suddenly it's almost like a Champions League scale game in a city that's been obviously picked for Europa League final.
Yes, I think UEFA. I think UEFA are in a difficult situation. You can't keep having the same finals at the same grounds.
Yeah.
And equally, it's Arsenal fans. I was looking when there was a potential of them getting to the Champions League final. They were still going to have to pay £800-900 just to get to Munich. Of course, many would have driven. Chelsea are going to Wrocław in Poland, which is relatively central. Obviously, less fans are going there. Next year, the Champions League final will be in Budapest. The Europa League final will be in Istanbul. The conference final will be in Leipzig. So again, it just depends which teams are going to get there. It will create different problems. So I do have a bit of sympathy for UEFA. In 2 years' time, they were looking at having the Champions League final at Baku, which would have been absolutely ridiculous. And I think only the last few weeks they've decided to have it in Madrid, back at Atletico Madrid Stadium. So that would have been a crazy decision. But I do have a bit of sympathy for UEFA.
Indeed, some incredible prices that the fans are paying. I think Miguel pointed out £555 for even a hostel in Bilbao. Let's talk about The Guardian and the Monday Night Football now. Hinchelwood fires Brighton bid for Europe. Big goal from Jack Hinchelwood off the bench, revealing he's going to be a father as well. Miguel, how big for Brighton, and how do you evaluate their season as it stands? Probably 8th?
Yeah, I mean, look, if they get Europe, then it's a massive success, given the club's recent history and the kind of lack of experience there. It's been once in the last few years. Because I suppose for Brighton, it might just feel a little bit disappointing, given what a few months ago, a little like their neighbours Bournemouth, well, not their neighbours, but a closer team in Bournemouth, it looked like this season could have had much more promise. There might have been more unpredictability to the season. That dropped off a bit, but now there is this late resurgence, and I think it does speak to, even if it hasn't necessarily been as much of a stride as they might have expected. I think Hörsler's done a very good job. Team is great to watch. They've had some really good results against wealthier sides. Tonight, just another one of those. And everything looks promising. I mean, they do look like they're going in the right direction, even if, as you say, it is just 8. But yeah, it's general progress. And and tonight, just another mark on that.
Indeed, through that, a win for Liverpool after winning the title. Won't be overly concerned after their break in Dubai, I'm sure. We'll take a quick break ourselves. So when we come back, look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in the Times. Liverpool vying for Wirtz. Big transfer line. Welcome back. You are watching Back Pages tonight, and it's welcome back to our guest, Miguel Delaney, chief football writer for The Independent, and Charlie Wyatt, football editor at The Sun. Come to you, Miguel, with the Telegraph for Sports Supplement front page. Lineker to lose out on 800k in BBC exit rights. Tom Morgan, Match the Day presenter, is forced to leave with no payoff. Contract extension also torn up after anti-Semitism video, which Lineker has taken down and apologised unreservedly for, says it was not intentionally posted. Miguel, what is your reaction to this? Did it feel inevitable?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose given what it felt, tension between, or rumbling tension, or at least maybe an underlying tension between maybe some new BBC leadership and Lineker, I suppose since the events of last year, that something like this might have been coming down the tracks. Obviously, Lineker has insisted as well that he was going to be outspoken on it. And it's amazing in one way, I suppose, in that essentially it's a media story. It's a pure news story, given the topics involved. But also, of course, as we're discussing it now, is a sports story, both because of Lineker's status and legacy in the game, and, of course, I suppose, what a cultural institution Match of the Day is as a programme. And there are elements of the story, I think, that are... I mean, look, there are elements of it that are difficult to discuss here. Among them, I say, the nature of the post that Lineker put up that he has since apologised for, that has been criticised for, using anti-Semitic tropes. Obviously, then there's this other side of it, which is, this constant analysis of how Gaza is spoken about. But yeah, it has resulted essentially in, I suppose, massive change to one of the staples of football in this country, and maybe also I think quite a curious way for. I mean, let's be fair in terms of his football and his broadcasting career. Lineker is one of the great figures of the English game in that sense, and it's quite a curious way for his career to go. And obviously, I suppose at the moment he's got a whole other podcast empire.
Yeah, he's got a little bit going on the side, to be fair to Gary Lineker. Financially, I think he's going to be all right. But culturally, media-wise, Charlie, how significant is it for those of us who grew up watching the likes of Desmond Lynam, who were very much front and centre, famous across the country? Lineker, 48 goals for England and now fronting Match of the Day. Is it the end of an era? Perhaps no one will ever, I guess, covet so much attention again in the media.
I'm not so sure. I still think people will sort of remember him as... we remember him as a great footballer, don't we? Of course, a lot of people that just have seen him as a terrific broadcaster that will not remember him being a brilliant footballer. But yeah, it is a shame. I mean, my colleague Clemmy Moody broke the story on The Sun last night, and yeah, it is obviously a shame. But equally, it's not a surprise in that at times he's pushed the boundaries, but obviously on this occasion. The tweet that got into trouble, he didn't see quite what he was reposting. But look, it is a shame, but I don't think that will really tarnish him too much. He will definitely get another top job, as you mentioned, and he will continue to be a terrific broadcaster and presenter.
Indeed. Let's move on to Liverpool. Again, more transfer news for them. Times Sport concerning a player linked with Manchester City heavily last week, Florian Wirtz. Liverpool vying for Wirtz. City drop interest in £126 million valued German, leaving the title winners and Bayern in competition, writes Paul Hurst and Paul Joyce. Miguel, if Manchester City are put off by the price, how on earth can Liverpool afford it?
I find this a very interesting one. So I wrote about this last week, and that basically in the Bayern dressing room, which obviously has a lot of Wirtz's international teammates, they feel he's going there, and that's what his top choice will be. Now, there has been one wrinkle to that story, which is Bayer Leverkusen absolutely don't want Wirtz going to Bayern Munich. So the story is apparently that they're willing to double the price for Bayern than they would say if it was Manchester City and Liverpool. But I just find in that context, I do find it notable that City have actually just dropped out now altogether, and Liverpool are almost seeing this as a moment to seize it. I mean, look, Paul Joyce in particular has excellent contacts at Liverpool. I wonder, just from reading from what I've heard on the other side, I wonder, is there some sense of Liverpool, are they being used as leverage maybe in a bigger situation? Perhaps not. Perhaps Wirtz actually is very interesting going to Liverpool, and why not? It's a very attractive option. But given what I've been told about Bayern Munich, my sense is still that a deal will end up being done there. But this is again something that could be played back to social media in a week when he's holding up a Liverpool jersey.
Charlie, what's your read on it? It's a lot of money, isn't it? Understanding Leverkusen would prefer to sell him to an overseas club than Bayern Munich.
Yeah, I mean he was over with his family, who are his agents, last week. The cynic in me suggests that Manchester City, who 7 days ago were definitely interested in him, now drop their interest. Maybe they know that he's either going to Liverpool or to Bayern Munich. As Miguel said, it's been felt the last 2 or 3 weeks he was going to Bayern. Liverpool would have to obviously fork out a hell of a lot of money, 150 million euros. But he is a great player. And Liverpool do have a bit of money, or a lot of money rather. Equally, Manchester City, obviously that's too much for them, but they're going to be bringing in 3 or 4 players, having already spent quite heavily in January. So it's an intriguing situation. I really hope that he plays in the Premier League next season. But as Miguel said, my hunch is it'll be playing Harry Kane in Munich.
Yeah, we'll see how that situation develops. Be a lot of flux at Manchester City anyway, won't they, from what we've seen, what we've heard. Let's talk about Jack Grealish, covered in the Telegraph by Ian Whittle. Grealish heads for showdown summer talks over City future. Shearer says £100 million man has to leave after Wembley snub. Guardiola has sympathy but will stay out of negotiations. 1 goal this season, and he's scored 3 times in 17 months, Miguel. He's got a lot of trophies, but in the final minute, just tell us why you think what he should do, because is there a decision to be made, or does he have to leave?
Well, look, both myself and Charlie are at the cup final on Saturday. What almost sums it up really is that City were chasing the goal, and Guardiola went for the punt of bringing on a teenager and giving him his debut rather than a £100 million star in the same position. And this is the other bit. Grealish was a star. He still is a massive name, but obviously it's been some time, certainly in a City shirt, where we've seen the sort of flourish to his play. That was one of the reasons they bought him in the first place. Look, there's been so much discussion about Guardiola's tactical demands, and it does feel actually has resulted, despite all the trophies he's won. There's just that disconnect between what Grealish really is as a player and what Guardiola wants. And if Guardiola is going to stay at City, as we can now see, it does feel like it's time for Grealish to go to maybe a club that puts a bit more prominence on a playmaker like him in the way he needs.
Yeah, give us 10 seconds, Charlie. What you think will happen to Jack Grealish, where he might end up?
Absolutely, it needs to go. I tell you what, why doesn't it go to the FA Cup winners? If they're going to lose someone like Eze, get Jack Grealish to Crystal Palace. OK, Charlie, lovely. We'll keep across Jack Grealish's future with interest. Charlie, Miguel, hope to see you again in the future. Thank you very much for now.